Hello, hello. You're listening to Archaeopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. I am Adri, your host and recovering English major, popping Tums like they're just candy.
Well, those Tums, what are they? The Chewy Bites? They're basically our candy.
Oh, I've also partaken in those.
Those are my favorite.
They're a little too much more expensive than the normal ones for my taste, especially in pregnancy when it's like such a daily occurrence that I need Tums.
Yeah, see, it's the texture for me for the other one. Like, they're too chalky, the regular. So the Chewy Bites, like, there's no texture. Oh, and they might as well be candy. They don't taste like Tums. Anyway, you guys, can you tell that we're adults because we have Tums opinions? Only adults have Tums opinions, I gotta tell you. Anyway, I'm Helene. I'm your co-host, producer, and just overall tired human right now. I've had a week at work, honestly. Short weeks, they just slam you, guys. I'm tired. I want it to be done.
I've been on comp time off, and I don't know how to even say this, but I needed this way more than I thought I did.
Oh man, yeah, I wish. That sounds great. I'm jealous.
I was it's like, oh, what is this inner peace? What is this level of zen that I've obtained? Just like, oh, and ideas come to me now. What is this living?
Is this living? Man.
Yeah, but I go back to the grind on Friday, so capitalism's gonna capitalism.
Yeah, it's gonna have to start again sometime, sadly.
Well, before we get to today's show's topic, which is one of the chapters of Half-Blood Prince, let's get to our oft neglected segment, Potter Watch, what the Ministry doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, the first, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned, however briefly, we don't have to get super into it, but there was a hostage situation at a synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, earlier this week. The temple was, I think it was Temple Beth El. Let me look here. So, yes, in Colleyville, Texas, the Beth Israel congregation, there was a hostage situation during a Sabbath service. I think there were 9 hostages, and they were released safely earlier this week, thankfully. But it is just always like it hurts my heart every time I hear something like this, because it's just another reminder to me and I don't really need the reminder, but it's a reminder to everyone that anti-Semitism is very, very prevalent. It has not gone anywhere, and I mean, it sucks. I don't know what to say other. As a Jew, it's just very hurtful to see these things happening in the world still. So
yeah, I mean, in the divisiveness of the political climate, which is like a way of understating a really bad thing that is happening in the United States, just makes it more and more common, sadly.
Yeah, religious hate crimes were on the rise. In general, since the Trump administration, it's gotten much, much worse. And I don't know. Don't quote me on the statistic, but I heard the statistic earlier this week that Jews make up something like 2% of the U.S. population, but like 90 or 80% of religious hate crimes in the United States are targeted towards Jews. So it's just extremely disproportionate, and
that's really disconcerting.
Yeah, I mean I could be remembering it a little wrong, but in general, the general like sentiment was the takeaway was that such a small population in the US, yet most of the hate crimes that are religiously based are against the Jewish faith. So it's tough, it's difficult, and just a reminder that it's out there, and that we can be doing things to try and combat it in our everyday lives.
Well, I found a statistic here.
Okay.
Um, so anti-Jewish attacks are the most common of anti-religious group hate crimes in the United States in 2020, with 683 cases. To compare, the second highest is anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim religious hate crimes, which were 110 in 2020.
This is a
Anti
500 difference.
correct.
Damn.
Anti-Sikh 89, anti-other religions 76, anti-Catholic 73, anti-other Christian 50, anti-Eastern Orthodox, as in Russian, Greek, or other, 43, anti-multiple religions group 40, anti-Protestant 30, anti-Buddhist 15, anti-Hindu 11, anti-Jehovah's Witness 9, anti-atheism, agnosticism, etc. 8, and anti-Mormon 7.
Oh, I wouldn't have expected that for Mormon to be the least amount. Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of like disproportionately, um, you know, anti-Jewish hate crimes are about 6 times more than anti-Islamic or Muslim hate crimes, which is a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say, but
Just wanted to kind of bring it up just in case
yeah.
our listeners were wondering what the statistic was actually, like it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Well, you had another thing on here. What was your other Potter Watch segment that you wanted to touch on?
Well, the US government in partnership with USPS, that is also a part of the government, right? Is sending out 4 COVID test kits per household. And if you want to get that, you could hop on thegoogle.com and put in USPS COVID kit, and it'll take you to where you need to go. But if you just don't want to go on the Google, you could do that by going to special.usps.com/test kits. I already ordered mine. It took me like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it was super, super quick. Also, if you just go to covidtests.gov, I believe it is, that will lead you to it as well.
Oh, see? Multiple ways to get it.
Yeah, no, I also ordered mine. I think it was yesterday, like the day that they announced it, and it took literally no time, and it seemed too easy. But I'm excited because this is the one benefit of living alone, that I get 4 for myself. However, people who, families with more than 4 people, homeless people who don't, like, it's very, there's some controversy in terms of like how
Oh,
fair this really
is this
is.
equitable? No, it is not.
No.
But if hopefully, hopefully you're housed, and the USPS accepts your address as valid, then
Yeah.
you can order 4 test kits per household. Is it enough? I don't think so. But I mean, I don't want to be like shrug emoji, right? But like, it's
I mean,
just.
at least they're doing something, right? I
I
mean,
know
we
this
can.
is like literally the bare minimum.
Yeah. I mean, the bar is in hell, but at least they are above it. Like they're doing
Slightly,
something.
just a tidbit. bit. Yeah, it's kind of like dating men, the bar is in hell, but at least he opened the door for me, I guess.
Exactly. That's a great comparison. I can get behind that comparison.
I mean, I mean, hashtag not all men, whatever. Yes, my husband's great, but like, I remember dating, guys. I'm not that old. The bar was still in hell even then.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this show, which is what chapter we're going to be discussing. Today, we will be discussing chapter 23, titled Horcruxes of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
This is the one where Harry heads to Dumbledore's office after having procured Slughorn's memory. They watch it and piece together what it all means. Voldemort's 7 Horcruxes, what they are, how to find them, etc. And afterwards, Dumbledore explains to Harry exactly what sets him apart from Voldemort and why he is uniquely poised to be the only person in the wizarding world who can defeat him.
Voldemort's Horcruxes and where to find them. The next installment in the Harry Potter series.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's the next Fantastic Beasts movie.
Yeah. Voldy's Horcruxes and where to find them.
Rolls right off the tongue.
That should have been the title of the 7th book. You know?
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I think that
instead of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it could have been like Voldemort's Horcruxes and where to find them.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020.
Just, I'm a genius, is all, you know.
Yes, you are.
And that was sarcasm, if anyone was wondering. Anyway, let's also get into our first impressions of the chapter, what we thought was driving the chapter. If you don't mind, Helene, I'll go first.
Okay.
I thought that what was driving this chapter was the politics of intent versus outcome. I know we've talked about this before in eras past and books past.
Okay.
But let me review, right? Like, review where I'm coming from. Actions, right, as a general rule, have an intent behind them. So, what happens after you perform the action would be the outcomes. So, like,
yeah,
you can intend for something to be good, and it can blow up in your face because of lack of planning or other external factors. Or you can intend someone to suffer from your actions and they profit from them, right? Like, intent doesn't necessarily dictate the outcome.
Right.
It is important, but it won't dictate outcome. So, for instance, in the political world, as we want to think about, a piece of legislation may intend to curb and discourage criminal behavior, but the outcome could be that it wasn't well drafted, so it has a loophole that is exploited by the same people it was supposed to keep in line. Conversely, a piece of legislation or law can intend to provide a code of respectability to unlawful behavior and also provide that, like, exploited loophole. But the intent doesn't really usually translate into an outcome. And we see that a lot in this chapter, because even with the fat lady, everyone has an intent behind their actions. Whether or not that intent is seen through to its outcome is a different matter. We talked about the fat lady earlier. She intends to teach Harry a lesson. It backfires on her. Slughorn intended to obfuscate his memory from Dumbledore, but that made Dumbledore more curious and hellbent on knowing what he did or didn't do. With Tom Riddle, Voldemort intended to store as many little pieces of his soul as he could in meaningful objects, and this, for the most part, except for Harry, became true. Voldemort intended to quash the prophecy, and then all he does is to make it more real and self-fulfilling. And that was it. Welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you. Helene, what about you?
Okay, before I get to mine, I just want to say, like, yes, I know that I'm sure we have done intent versus outcome before, but it's an oldie but a goodie. Like, totally, I totally agree with all of your points. Especially, I mean, the last one, the self-fulfilling prophecy, like, totally fits. I love it.
It's just he's so hell-bent on quashing the prophecy that he just makes it real.
Yeah, I mean, and he doesn't even realize that if he had just sat back and not done anything, like, he would probably not be at risk of being defeated now by this, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. So,
by a literal baby.
Yeah.
He was so afraid of a literal baby. It brings to mind so many classic literature that is all about basically someone had a prophecy. Then the king was like, kill that baby. And then it became true.
Yep. I mean, Voldemort, if you had just not tried to murder a baby, your life would probably be a lot easier in terms of reaching your goals. So, moral of the story, don't murder babies. Like, don't try to murder babies. Just, like, leave babies alone. That's the moral of the story.
You know what? Yeah. But, we're talking about like babies who are born, not, we're not Texas here. I live in Texas, but I'm
Oh,
not
no,
Texas.
no, like, I said babies, not fetuses.
Exactly. No, no.
There's
It's just, well, you know what though? It's because the anti-choice people don't say fetuses; they say babies.
Oh,
So
to me, there's
they.
a very big difference. Yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, I understand. I
Yeah.
just want to make
Yeah.
clear to everyone that the anti-choice or forced birth movement um, likes to obfuscate with language when they're not using language properly. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I like your pointed attempt of, oh, well, not attempt, but your pointed way of calling them the anti-choice or pro or forced birth instead of pro-life, because that is what they like to call themselves. But it
No, but
is,
that's not true though. Like
yeah,
pro-life would be also pro the life of the mother. So if
yeah,
you don't care if the mother lives or
it's
dies,
just pro whatever life they think is worth being pro for
oh
at the
no, no,
moment.
they're just pro forced birth because they don't give a shit
Yeah.
about that child after it's born. So
Yep. Anyway, yes, great politic, loved it. Mine is very different.
I love it. I love when this happens.
Yeah. So I went with morality, the politics of morality. This one took a while to come to me, but once I like decided on it and started writing out like my points, it kind of just flowed out of me, and I was like, okay, yeah, never mind. I wrote like so much on this, so let me try and get through it. Um, I don't need
Okay,
to.
listeners, we're hearing a defense of a thesis here.
I don't need to define morality for you guys. I'm pretty sure you know the different, like, right and wrong. You guys know what morality is. Anyway, although, okay, I'll read this one thing. It says principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. Morality. There we go. So this chapter explores various different characters and their morality, as well as like how that morality has played or will play a part in whether or not Voldemort succeeds in his goal of taking over the Wizarding World or whatever the hell he is trying to do. So Slughorn, his morality is pretty shaky. And while he might have thought that telling Tom about Horcruxes in detail was like a harmless thing to do, he had to have known that no good could have come from that. And since he's more of a morally gray character, it makes sense why Tom would have come to him for that knowledge with the and guidance with that question about Horcruxes and not another teacher. Voldemort, on the other hand, pure evil, one end of the morality spectrum, like all the way at the end, right? He shows no hesitation at the thought of murdering 7 people just to like become immortal or whatever, much less actually carrying out those murders and becoming a serial killer.
Well, and let's be clear, it's not that he just murders 7 people to split his soul, it's that he waits until like significant deaths to like get that part of his soul.
Yeah. So
Into
I
the
mean,
object.
he murders way more than 7 people in total. He just murdered 7 people for the Horcruxes, but there were insignificant, quote unquote, insignificant deaths
So the
in between
idea
there.
that is that there could be a difference between significant and insignificant acts of like murder
Yeah.
is in itself just so amoral.
Yeah, exactly. But back to the middle, we get Dumbledore, who is also more of a morally gray character. But he, on the other hand, is leaning heavily towards the side of good. But what makes him morally gray is that he's willing to do things that in themselves might not be seen as like good, but he's willing to do them in order to achieve the ultimate goal of good, which is defeating Voldemort. So he, like, what's the opposite of like hedonistic? He's like the big picture guy. He's willing to like step on toes and like do some morally shaky things, like, I don't know, raise Harry as a pig for slaughter, knowing that he's going to die, because he's working towards like a bigger ultimate goal of good.
He's thinking about the greater good, the collective good, rather than the personal good. Whereas Slughorn only thinks about the personal good.
Yeah. And so Slughorn's intentions, like, I guess kind of go to yours a little bit. Like, his intentions aren't overall very good, and therefore that's why he's a bit morally gray, while Dumbledore's intentions are overall pretty good, but like the way he gets to it isn't super, like, I don't know, kosher.
He's on moral shaky ground sometimes.
Exactly. But then the final character that I'm going to talk about is Harry. Surprise, surprise. Harry is on the other end of the spectrum from Voldemort. I wouldn't say that he's, like, 100% good all the time or whatever, but, like,
no, that's Neville, like, obviously.
Yeah, no, but as Dumbledore puts it, he is pure of heart, which, his instincts are always to do the right thing in the moment, even if it means hindering his personal goals or sometimes the overall objective, as opposed to Dumbledore, who, like, his instincts, he doesn't always do the right thing in the moment because he has, like, this bigger goal of doing the big good at the end. But Harry, like, every single decision that he is faced with, he's going to do the right thing. No matter what, like, the big picture is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's never had to question whether or not he should be the one to defeat Voldemort, because he knows that that's the right thing to do. He hasn't. It doesn't matter that, like, it could end his life prematurely, or like that he's gonna probably lose people that he loves in the process, or whatever it is. Like, he just knows that the next thing that he does has to be the right thing, no matter what it is.
Well, he also feels like a moral obligation because he's, like, been thrust upon this, like, you're the boy who lived, you're the one who can do it.
Yes, but also, yeah, but then he also has, like, that fighting, those things that he, like, the things that he's fighting for. He has, like, that factor behind it of, like, I lost my parents. I had to grow up in this abusive household, and the person that's responsible for that is Voldemort, and I want to defeat him, so he can't do this to anyone else.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, let's go into our deep, in-depth discussion on the chapter itself, because this is that was like a big picture, like you say.
Yeah.
But let's get to the granular. What was the quote that kind of clenched it for you, and you were like, "Yeah, this is all about morality"?
All right. So the quote is from Dumbledore. It says, "In spite of all the temptation you have endured, all the suffering, you remain pure of heart, just as pure as you were at the age of 11, when you stared into a mirror that reflected your heart's desire, and it showed you the only way to thwart Lord Voldemort, and not immortality or riches. Harry, have you any idea how few wizards could have seen what you saw in that mirror?"
Oh, I love this quote so much.
Yeah, it was.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, we know that Ron doesn't see his family or, like, love or whatever. He sees, like, him triumphant, the most triumphant Weasley out of all the Weasleys, right?
Right. Yeah.
We know Dumbledore doesn't see that necessarily in the mirror.
Yeah, and when and like, there was that special bit of magic that Dumbledore talks about, how only someone who truly wanted to defeat Voldemort and make sure that he didn't get the stone was going to be the only person that would be able to see at the mirror exactly where the stone was and how to get it.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, if anyone other than Harry was in that chamber, I don't know if they would have seen what Harry saw. Harry is the only person that we can really say with confidence would be the type of person to see that in the mirror. So, and I think and obviously Dumbledore agrees from this quote.
Well, and it's interesting that he says, like, you're as pure of heart now as you were at the age of 11, because he didn't say, like, as pure of heart as when you were born, right? Like, he's like, despite everything that's been tossed your way, you can still love.
And you still have this desire to, like, do good. There's so many people who would have been tempted by selfishness and things that would make their own personal lives better. But Harry's instinct and inclination is always to do the right thing for everyone else.
Yeah, big picture instead of like
Yeah.
individual picture.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about like, Ginny and his like raging dragon inside him.
Yes, but he would never like outwardly do something to like sabotage that relationship, right? Because he has that sense of morality, you know?
Yeah, yeah, he doesn't do it, but he really, really wants to.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is not sad when it does eventually implode, you know?
Of
Like
course, like he's only human, Helene.
exactly. So what about you? What quote or moment from the chapter illustrated your intent versus outcome politics?
All right, so this is when, Harry is like, yeah, 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 I can love, right?
Yeah.
And says, yes, just love, said Dumbledore. But Harry, never forget that what the prophecy says is only significant because Voldemort made it so. I told you this at the end of last year. Voldemort singled you out as the person who would most be dangerous to him. And in doing so, he made you the person who would be most dangerous to him.
Yeah.
So,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
exactly. So here we're talking about the self-fulfilling prophecy. Something that I think is very I don't want to say commonplace, but it's something that I have seen happen like even with little things, right? Like
Hmm.
when you tell yourself, for instance, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, there's no way you're going to do it
Right. Yeah.
because you've already decided in your mind that it's impossible. Now, I'm not saying like just thinking that you can, beat Serena Williams at tennis is going to make you a champion, right? But like it doesn't go that far, but saying maybe like, oh, I can't play tennis because I suck at it is very different from like, oh, okay, I'll keep an open mind and like practice and maybe I can, make this a hobby.
Right. Yeah.
um
If you go
so
in with the intent of failing, your outcome is that you're going to fail.
well, and that's like negative self-talk.
Yeah.
But if you also go into a job interview thinking like I'm never going to get this job, so that's your like that's your prophecy that, or someone tells you that and you believe it, you're already going to go dejected and like shoulder slumped and like not even try your best, right? And then you're not going to get the job. So
Exactly.
these are things that happen in real life too. But what Dumbledore is also saying is like all he had to do was like fucking not do anything. But no, his hubris got in the way and now this is happening.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's go back to yours. Like, who was the character that, like, illustrated morality for you?
Uh, I mean, there obviously, like I mentioned earlier, like every single character is kind of like somewhere on the spectrum of morality. But I decided for the one character that I chose to be Dumbledore because I think he's really the perfect example of like a morally gray character. And he spends the entire chapter trying to get Harry just to see that it's his unbending sense of morals and, the urge to do the right thing, which make him the one perfect person to defeat Voldemort.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, for me, in intent versus outcome, it's Voldemort
Hmm.
because in this chapter, he is even though he's not technically present on the page, it is mostly about him, but he's not the
Yeah,
character on page.
right,
He is the one whose intent matters most in whatever is being related here.
right.
And we see the like gamut of options and the outcomes of, well, yes, he did create Horcruxes, we think. And we know that now as fans later on, right?
Hmm.
But he also intended to quash a prophecy and then made it more real. So like his fears and hubris made something like backfire for him.
Yeah,
Um but usually like his plans really have the outcome he desires.
yeah. I mean, he really is his own worst enemy.
Aren't we
in
all,
these
Helene?
things.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, without the tools that he gave Harry, Harry would not have been able to defeat him in the
Well,
end.
without the hubris of like, oh, love magic. Who cares, you know?
Yeah, like Harry wouldn't have that protection of love magic if it weren't for Voldemort. Harry wouldn't be the one person that could defeat him and knows how to and has the drive to do it if it weren't for Voldemort, you know? He's
Yeah.
his own worst enemy.
All right. So throughout the book, how do you think you can implement this morality?
Um yeah, one really jumped out at me, and that's Draco. Draco is like, before this book, Draco was like seen as just like very morally bad, you know, near Voldemort in terms of like, you know, he did not have a lot of redeeming qualities in terms of actually, what's the word, like valuing anything of good morals, right? He was evil as far as we knew. But in this book specifically, Draco is extremely struggling with his morality in this book, having to deal with the fact that he has to murder Dumbledore, and if he doesn't, he's going to be murdered himself. And he's actually having to start to confront whether or not like he actually believes in like the morals of a Death Eater, or if he actually wants to be a good person, but like everything in his life up until now has kind of set him up to fail and be evil. He's
Hmm.
really having to face those questions. So I thought that he was a good example of morality in this book.
I mean, not to like steal your thunder, but I also, when you were talking, I was thinking about Hermione
Okay.
and how she always tries to be the voice of morality for the boys.
Uh-huh.
And we see that a lot in this book. Like, no, Harry, you should be focusing on this other thing. Or, Harry, you're not giving him the potion when, he
Yeah, she
was,
seems to be she likes to be like the little angel on their shoulders, right?
yeah, like
When she
the
can be.
moral voice of reason.
Yeah. But as we've also pointed out a lot through this book, she's done some very morally questionable things herself, like physically attacking Ron, um,
Exactly, yeah.
and stuff
But,
like that.
yeah, so, like, she's not pure either, and we
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, it wasn't hard for me to pick because morality is kind of like a main theme in these books in general, but it's just
Mhm.
very, for this book specifically, I feel like this is a very like big crux of the question of morality in the series too,
Oh,
in the
yeah,
theme.
for sure, like, I completely agree, I just wanted to, like, throw out Hermione there just for
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good observation. What about you? What about throughout the
So
book?
for me, like, obviously, like, there's a lot of intent in this book, like, Dumbledore, is dying, and he knows it, and he sets up these, like, classes, private tutoring classes
Right.
with Harry, intending to, like, give him all the tools to defeat Voldemort and, like, fill in all the gaps that he has just, forgotten to tell him about
Yeah.
since, like, book 1.
Mhm.
Um and like the outcome is that Harry gets partially all the information he needs, but not all. Like there's like some holes that he needs to fill in, like more clues that the trio had to like put together after he's gone. But
Yep.
also I was thinking about Harry and how like he intends to do so many things, especially when it comes to one Draco Malfoy, right? He's just like he has so many intentions to figure out what he's trying to do, and like his success levels are just all over the place on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Harry's success rate in this book in general doesn't seem to be very high.
Well, I mean, if it was super high, I feel like the book would be over
Yeah.
in like 3 chapters. So maybe there's a reason for that.
Yeah. That's true. That is true. It definitely brings for more conflict and things to write about in a book.
Just just the plot, a little thing called the plot.
Yeah, just small, teeny thing.
All right, let's talk about the things we hated and the things that we liked on our Dementors and Chocolate segment. Helene, when you read this chapter, what were you like? Ugh, Ted Cruz, you're a Dementor.
Yeah, I didn't have like a super obvious Dementor in this chapter, but there was just one thing that I like doing that. I like if there's something that kind of rubs me the wrong way, but I don't understand why. I like to unpack that with you because I feel like you have a good idea of like you're able to help me kind of get to the root of why I might be feeling off about something. So
I love when we do this.
yeah, so this one like I'm not sure it is a Dementor, but I do want to unpack it. So the way that the author describes the teenage boy's behavior at the beginning of the chapter during Slughorn's memory, like all of the little tiny itty bitty Death Eater to be people,
Uh-huh.
their behavior around Tom Riddle, um, specifically like there was one instance where she like used the word tittered, like the boys tittered when he said this. It just felt like it kind of I know she was talking about boys specifically, but it kind of like felt like she was liking them to like a group of like giggly little girls that were like
Yeah.
all idolizing this boy that they love.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was just weird and felt off to me. I don't really understand why.
Okay. So for context, right?
Hmm.
And to make sure that we are both talking about the same thing. This is when the narrator talks about how some of the boys were even older than Tom, but they all looked to Tom for guidance. And when he was obviously kind of like blowing up smoke up to Slughorn, to
Hmm.
kind of get what he wanted,
Yeah.
um, the guys, right, like this group of teenage boys,
Hmm.
were kind of like giggly, like knowing that he was trying to get some information, like they were smarter than Slughorn in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. They were just kind of like, ooh, like Tom, he's so cool. He knows what he's doing. He. That's like kind of how it came off to me.
Yeah, just like he's the Gaston of this
Yeah,
little
exactly.
village.
Right. Like he's like in a boy band and these are all his little fangirls or something. I don't
Okay,
know.
so I think it might be twofold, right? Like on the one hand, it's just like so annoying when like everyone's in on the joke except the person who is suffering from it,
Hmm.
which would be Slughorn.
Right.
So that might make, I mean, that makes me uncomfortable
Hmm.
because I'm pretty sure Slughorn noticed, but didn't just call it out because he was like, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes I have been that person where like people think that I don't notice things, and I'm just like, I'm gonna let it go because nothing good's gonna come out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like that feeling of humiliation, I
Yeah.
guess, could be it. But the other part could be that the author tends to feminize these acolytes. Like we talked about Crab and Goyle and how they took Polyjuice Potion to become little girls
Hmm.
to do like heinous things or help Malfoy do heinous things,
Right.
and how that was transphobic, and like how then now she uses potentially feminizing language to describe a vile group of followers.
Yeah. It felt weird. Yeah, to use these types of descriptions and like create an image in your mind of like this giggling group of girls for a young group of men who are like giddy at the thought of being able to like murder people.
And they didn't like, it's not like she said they snickered or like something more, I guess, that you would like call it more masculine in nature, or they
Yeah.
elbowed each other.
No, they tittered.
Exactly, which was is just again a feminizing language
Yeah.
to describe people who are up to no good.
Yeah. It was weird. Um yeah,
And
I don't know.
we also know that she goes to like extreme lengths to talk about any teenage woman,
Mhm.
or girl, right, who is not Hermione, Ginny, or Luna as like gossipy and frivolous.
Hmm. Yeah,
So it's the echoes of that, perhaps.
yeah, yeah. I mean, totally. Anyway, yeah, it was weird. It didn't feel right, and I think the reasons that you stated probably play into it. So, what about you? What was your Dementor this chapter?
Well, surprise, surprise. It is none other than Slughorn, and the
Hmm.
following. Of course, he muttered. This is all hypothetical, what we're discussing, isn't it? All academic. Yes, sir, of course, said Riddle quickly. Um, we all know Slughorn knew better than this.
Yeah.
We all know that he didn't have to give Voldemort that information.
Yep.
Why did he?
I mean, yeah.
Because his vanity was flattered.
Yeah.
He truly thought like Riddle was gonna become like the next prime minister, or whatever, the minister of magic. No, sir, your ambition led you astray once
Yeah.
again.
I mean, I mentioned briefly in my earlier politic when I was going through it, like Slughorn had to have known that no good was going to come from him telling him Riddle the details of how to make a or like what a Horcrux is. Uh, this is why they don't teach it in schools. Like, what purely academic reason could Riddle have had to want to know? And then, especially when he starts to expand that to like, oh well, I mean, hypothetically, you could kill 7 people and make 7 Horcruxes, right? At that point, like, if anything, all the alarm bells should have gone off in his head, and he should have stopped right there.
Also, like the idea of like, okay, we knew Dumbledore had been from Slughorn himself, right? Had been adamant that this should not be taught in schools and it shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
even like referenced in library, but
Yeah.
anything like that. And it even then, even after he said that, he didn't even go to Dumbledore and tell him what happened.
Yeah.
Because like I can understand a mistake, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I mean we're all human, but then to not own up to it the moment it happened, you're like, I mean, if I were Slughorn, right, I'm like sitting back going like, that was weird, right? Yeah, that was weird. Like maybe I should tell someone in
Yeah.
charge that this happened
Yeah.
and
Well,
see what
like
I can
you
do.
like you said, when it was happening during the conversation itself, it was all about his ego, and then afterwards it was all about protecting his reputation in case it ever did get out. Like, oh, I'm not going to
Correct.
tell anybody because it could make me look bad. But during
Ugh,
it, he was like, "Ooh, like this kid think like he comes to me, he trusts me with this question. I must be so special. I can't wait to tell him everything I know so that when he becomes successful, he can say Slughorn told me everything he knew. He taught me everything he knew."
exactly. You got it.
Yeah.
Nail in the head. And that's obviously the reason why I don't like Horace.
He's looking worse and worse every chapter, you know.
Well, it's just, when you're reading it like from start to finish and you don't have to like sit down and digest every chapter like we do,
Yeah.
it's easier to like make him palatable, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been your,
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of
experience.
just was like, I always just kind of saw him as like an character. Like, yeah, he's kind of crappy, but he's not, he's just whatever. Like, in the
Like
end, he
he's no
does,
Umbridge, right? Like he's
yeah,
no like hateful, like easy to hate character,
yeah.
like right off the
Like, I
page.
wouldn't be friends with him if I met him in real life, but at the same time, like, oh, at the end, he, fights on the side of good, so whatever. But, like, yeah, when you sit down and you dissect every single chapter and you kind of go through everything with a fine tooth comb, you see things that are like, oh, no, like this guy, every single time, there's something about him that's just like, you are not a good person, sir, you know?
Exactly. So, let's take a palate cleanser here with our chocolate. What did you like about the chapter?
Not surprisingly, my chocolate was Dumbledore, and I mean, it's hard to pick one specific chocolate in a chapter that heavily features both Dumbledore and Harry, two of my favorite characters. So overall, the chocolate is just getting to see how much Dumbledore admires Harry. Like he gives Harry lots of compliments in this chapter, and he says a lot of things that like I always felt and thought about Harry, but never really had the words to like explain why I admired him. And so like Dumbledore is putting words to like my thoughts and feelings about Harry and showing how much he actually cares for him. Because like a lot of people out there will say that Dumbledore doesn't like obviously couldn't care for Harry because he lets him grow up thinking he's not going to end up dying, and he lets him live with the Dursleys for the first 11 years of his life. And yeah, there are a lot of shitty things that he does to Harry, but in the end, Dumbledore really loved Harry, and I think people forget that. So that was my chocolate.
Well, mine was related, but much more concentrated, I guess. Um, and it's sassy Harry just being like, "Okay, yes, I can love," and then his own being like, "Big deal," like,
Yeah.
mom.
And it's like Dumbledore basically reading his mind saying, like, I know what you're going to say. It's not just, it is a big deal, okay, sir? Like, listen up.
Big friggin' deal, like whatever.
Yeah. Sassy Harry is always great when we get him.
I just love it because I'm just like, yes, I would have also thought that. Like, this shit again. Like,
Yeah, cool. I can love. Big deal. Whatever. Like,
whatever. Like, oh, I'm not a sociopath. Congrats. Let me get myself a ribbon. Congrats, you're not a sociopath.
not a sociopath ribbon. I want one of those.
Oh, you know it's coming as a sticker. Like now, like there's
not
no
a
way.
sociopath. That's great. Yes, please do it.
We would like to thank our lovely patrons for making it possible for us to keep making this show and pay for all our podcasting related fees and subscriptions. And if you, person who is listening right now, would also like to join this exclusive club, you can hop on over to patreon.com/alcheopolitics and get access to goodies.
Yes. So if you decide to pledge $2 a month, you will get access to bonus content for every single episode, just like the one that we're about to tell you about, that we're going to do at the end of this episode. And then $5 and $10 a month tiers of patronage are going to get access to physical rewards like the stickers that we talked about, and other fun things like recipe cards and all of that stuff. And those come every 3 months.
All right, but let's move on to what we're really here for. The sneak peek of what we're going to talk about today. We are going to do a Patreon exclusive content for our series of Girl Who Lived, where we gender flip a character and talk about the implications of that. And today we're talking about Peter Pettigrew.
Ooh, gonna get crunchy.
It's gonna get a little, I don't know, snivelly in there.
Yeah.
Just high pitched and very nervous.
Oh, yes.
So every episode, we ask our listeners a question. Last episode, we asked, given the chance, how would you use Felix Felicis? Helene, what did our listeners say?
First of all, I gotta say, guys, I expected a lot more answers to this question than we got. We usually get so many answers to questions. I was like, this is a fun one. Like, this gives you the chance to just, like, go crazy and just, think of... I mean, I'd never thought of what I would use Felix Felicis for before we asked the question to ourselves. And so, guys, come on. You really missed an opportunity to, like, tell us what you would use it for, because we did not get too many answers. But the ones we did get, I was very happy with.
Well, maybe people just don't want to give us their deepest, darkest desires, Helene. Who knows?
I mean, they're not going to be like... I mean, like, the things we said were, like, apply for a job or, like, take a vacation. It wasn't, like, super deep.
Maybe they thought that it was, like, none of our business and we were being too nosy.
That's true. That's true. I will say, so the consensus I saw from most answers to this question were multiple people said that they would use it before they went to buy concert tickets.
Oh my god, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So our avid music concert fans out there, like, that's a great idea. I had not thought of that myself. But yeah, like, because that process, our listener Lucy, our patron Lucy, mentioned, like, the process itself is so stressful. Like, you want to make sure you get good seats. You want to make sure that the website doesn't crash on you, all that stuff. So if you take it, the process is smooth. You get good seats. You don't have to pay ridiculous prices. And
yeah, you don't have to buy it from scalpers and like shady people online.
Exactly. Like, for me, like, totally, I would take it before buying concert tickets so I could get front row, like, that's a great idea. I love it.
I was like in the nosebleeds almost at an Adele concert, and it was glorious. Imagine if I was front row seat. Like, I would die.
Right, exactly. It's pretty freaking, I mean, that would be amazing, and I had not thought of that. So thank you guys for bringing that to my attention as an option.
That is brilliant, and this is why I am not worthy of any of our listeners.
Yes. Oh, and then, so this one took it even a step further. So this person, Cree underscore new canoe on Instagrams, they didn't say just like buying concert tickets, but they said like before they went to a concert. At the concert,
you get picked from the crowd. You get to meet the celebrity. Yes,
that's not. So their reasoning was they play all their favorite songs. There's no tall person in front of them.
Okay.
And there always seems to be a cold beer in my hand and I'll find the bathroom that has no endless line, so I won't miss huge parts of the show.
Yeah, so the attention whore in me just went for like,
yeah, you were like,
I get picked up. I get picked from the crowd. I get to go to the VIP section.
Yeah, no, I mean, this one was more like, they were all more about the simple pleasures, like, I get to, what was the first thing they said? It was like, oh yeah, they're gonna play all the songs that I want them to play, and the no tall person in front of me, like, that is my peak. Like, I would, if I could,
that was gorgeous. Yes.
Any event I attend, if there was no tall person in front of me, I would be happy. Yeah, great answer. So all concert related things so far. Another person on Twitter, Feto _ standing you, or I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying any of these things right. They said booking tickets to a BTS concert and buying merch. So this is a BTS fan.
Okay.
Good choices. Like I said, I've seen a theme here.
These are all concerts that like sell out immediately. So yes, I understand.
Exactly. And then our listener Jeff, who is always so reliable and giving us such great answers every week, he went a different direction. So he said, when the student loan people call, when I get pulled over, or when I'm applying for a better job.
I mean, beautiful.
Right. And then he had a question that he like brought up a question for us. And he said, genuine question, okay? Since you can't use it in quote unquote organized competitions, can you use it in things that are technically competitions? In particular, I'm thinking of when many people all apply for a single job. If I took Felix Felicis and I get hired, did I cheat? Because that is technically a competition, right?
Okay, so hear me out. What if, like, I've already found a loophole through this?
I'm not surprised at all.
What if, Jeff, you take it not to apply to a certain job or for a certain job interview, but you take it right before you start your job search, thinking, I'm gonna, just land me my dream job. And then that like takes you to the process of finding the right position for you, like the right opening, and you apply for the job.
Yeah, but then, I mean, I personally would want to take it before applying for that specific job, because that's the hard part, right?
No, but what I'm saying is, like, maybe you take it and you're like thinking about like, I want a place where I'm going to be valued and happy and paid well, like you take it with that intention, right? You take it, and then maybe in other days you would have just like opened Indeed.com and looked at the postings. But then you're like, you know what? I feel like going out for a walk. And then you bump into someone who's like trying to desperately fill the role that you've always dreamed of, you know?
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my loophole, guys.
Yeah. And then, well, his question made me think about, like, you're right. I forgot that there are regulations. Like, technically, there are, like, specific instances in when you are not allowed to take Felix Felicis, and organized. I think the book specifically calls out, like, sporting competitions. So, like, before a Quidditch match, which is why Hermione was so against, like, Harry, quote unquote, giving Ron the potion when he never actually did, because, like, it's technically cheating if you take it before a sporting match. It's like taking a performance enhancing drug, like, right, like taking steroids or something, because you, like, know you're gonna
Roofing
do
him with good luck.
exactly. So I forgot that there are regulations, and then I was like, oh right, like, would taking it before anything that would give you an advantage over someone else, would that, like, be illegal in the Wizarding world? But then I just remembered, like, what, they wouldn't make this potion wouldn't be a thing if there weren't, like, times that were okay to use it. So there have to be, like, situations in which there are no limitations for taking this potion.
Again, I'm just saying, if you take it without applying to a particular job in mind, just you take it without knowing what's out there, but you're just like envisioning your perfect job, then the
Mhm.
perfect job, just like you go find it out in the wilderness or on the internet, but like you just get a shorter path to it.
Yeah.
Like it's not like Harry took Slughorn's memory by force, you know?
Yeah. No. True. And, like, the way that Slughorn describes it, when he's talking about it, and that, like, initially, he's like, you could have just one, like, you could just take it and have a perfect day. Like, I guess maybe a lot of people would just take it without a specific goal in mind and just take it so that they have, like, a really good day. But it's got to be really fucking hard to make and come by, and, like, it must be really expensive. So, like, I would not waste it on that. You know, like, I would utilize it to the best of my ability.
Honestly, if I was really burnt out, yeah, I would use it for like my perfect day. Like, peace out. I'm taking PTO and drinking my Felix.
Right. I mean, if it was easy to come by, or, like, you know, I knew I was going to have another opportunity to take it at a different time, maybe. But if it was my one and only shot, no.
You're gonna you like Harry would kind of like try to take like one gulp at a time.
Oh yeah, like, oh, I'll have a perfect hour here and there, but I don't need a perfect 24 hours right now. Thank you.
No thanks. This is really hard to come by, and I know moderation. Thanks.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, thanks guys for your responses as always. You definitely, like, the main consensus of, like, the concerts stuff, like, that was not anything I had thought of. We did not mention that. So thank you for giving me that idea. Like, that's awesome. I love that idea.
You know, and this panini, I forgot concerts were.
I right. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going with. I forgot that concerts existed because I haven't been to one since 2019.
Just like the panini has like really crushed my spirit, guys.
I know. Oh, the last concert I went to was a Jonas Brothers concert in
I
2019.
remember.
It was beautiful.
And here we are in 2022, the year of our Lord. Anyway, this episode's question is, how do you think Slughorn came to know about Horcruxes?
Yeah, I mean, this came to us. We were like, wait, how does Slughorn know about him?
I mean, did he do an advanced degree in the occult arts?
Yeah, I mean, as we know, at least, like, as far as we know, they don't teach about this in Hogwarts. Like, so when he was a student, unless they were teaching about it back then, you have
Also,
to.
his specialty is not defense against the dark arts. So
Yeah,
what's the excuse there, you know?
yeah. Like, did he go looking for more information? Because maybe he considered doing, like, making one at some point in his life, or, you know, maybe he knew someone who did. I don't know. There are lots of
Maybe he knew
possibilities.
maybe a friend was really interested in it, you know what I mean? A friend?
Yeah, I'm asking for a friend. Yeah. So let us know your thoughts. We thought it was just a little interesting that he knew about them in the first place.
Yeah. Well, we come to the end of our episode, and as always, we talk about all the things we've been consuming that are not Potter related. So, Helene, what has kept you afloat this week?
Yeah, so I had a long weekend. I had a 3-day weekend last week. So I sat down and I watched a few episodes of the new season of Queer Eye,
Ugh,
season
brilliant.
6. Yes.
Gorgeous.
And
Shot in Austin, 1 hour away from my house.
yeah, Texas, man. It was all Texas. I watched the first 3 episodes. Or there was one about like I skipped one where it was like about like giving like kids in high school who are like not getting to experience their senior year because of
A prom.
COVID, a prom. Yeah, I skipped that one because I just wasn't feeling it. I'll go back to that eventually. But the first
I
two
do like the
episodes,
one-on-one heroes, yeah.
yeah, I prefer those types of episodes. And so I watched the first two and then the one-on-one hero episode after the prom one. But yeah, the first 2 episodes, I cried like 6 times.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
like, especially the second one with Angel,
Uh-huh.
the weightlifter. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I love her. That episode, I cried so many times.
I mean, spoiler alert, but like I cried when Angel's dad
Oh my
was
god,
talking.
it was so good.
It was so good. So I'm guessing you saw
Yeah, the first episode, right? Yeah,
Terry, Angel, and then you saw, is it the one with the crawfish
yes,
restaurant? Yeah, okay.
yes. His wife, he was a widow, and his wife died, and they had a
He's a
restaurant.
widower, yeah. I cried so hard on that one too.
Really, that one I liked that one a lot, but it didn't get me as emotional as the first two. The first
Um,
one with Terry like having all the insecurity about like her hair and not wanting to like being the only person that like wouldn't take off her wig for Jonathan.
for uh,
And then seeing her at the end with like her beautifully full grown natural hair was so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, I loved it.
yeah, well, I think it's the thing that got me was like the father-daughter relationship and how like it
Yeah.
was like, he was missing his late wife and
Yeah.
he had just my heart shattered in pieces.
Yeah, I need to watch more. There are definitely a lot more episodes left in the season. I was so emotionally like spent after those episodes because it was
Oh,
so
yeah, we can't watch more than 3 in a row
yeah, it's a lot.
either.
But they're
So,
great, but they're so touching.
yeah, they're good. They're good. If you haven't started, now's a good time, listeners.
Yes.
So I'm back on my historical romance bullshit, and I have found a new author for me, new to me, right?
Okay.
That I really like, and her name is Courtney Milan. And I'm just like, yes, feed me more of this. And
Okay.
what I really love about her heroines and her heroes in these historical romance novels is that they have like complex emotions and intentions and like they feel like real people and also like super progressive for the time, right? Kind of uh representations, like I don't need to see rape or just mistreatment of women to feel like, oh my god, this is really historical, because I read them to escape. So
Right.
it's they're funny, the characters all feel very real and very separate from each other, because sometimes with the same author you're like, oh my god, this is another one of her characters is like slightly tweaked from this other character,
Yeah.
but they just feel like real people with real pasts and emotions and things
Aw.
that influence the way they behave. So it's been pretty good. So check her out if you enjoy historical romances, and even if you don't, maybe you would like that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's always nice to find another creator of content that you really like.
Yeah,
So
I just go through like the catalog of like all these authors, and then I'm like, oh no, what am I to do next?
yeah. Yeah. It's always good to
And
find like that person that click that like their stuff clicks with you. So
Yeah, well, and at least recently, and I mean by recently, I mean like from the early aughts to now, like historical romance is not what it used to be in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, where there was for sure a lot more of like depictions of rape or like depictions of like non-consensual sex or like someone changing their mind and then the man just going through it anyway. Like there was like so super problematic um issues about consent and boundaries and bodies that were reflective of perhaps the way we thought about bodies at the time, right? And now because consent is such a big deal and like we want to model in even our romance novels what we should be modeling IRL, right?
Hmm.
Then I just feel a lot better about reading these types of things.
Yeah.
Yes, we should all be treated fairly and, whatever, with love and
What?
consent.
Such a controversial opinion.
I know, right? I'm just shattering glass ceilings left
Hot
and right.
take. Hot take.
Well, that's it for today's episode. You can join us next time as we talk about chapter 24 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This one is titled Septum Sempra. Ooh, I can't say it. I can't.
Sectum Sempra, I think. Right. Yeah.
Sectum Sempra.
There we go.
There! It happened.
Yes, if you've enjoyed this conversation, which we always hope you do, we would love if you would take just one itty-bitty second out of your very busy lives to give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening to our beautiful voices at this very moment. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, rate us 5 stars, and we would really appreciate it. We want to hear your feedback about what you're liking about the show, and we just love hearing from you guys. So thank you.
And if it's too long, you can just send us an email,
Yeah. I mean, always our email is always open.
Archaeopolitics@gmail.com.
Yes.
All right. Until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/archaeopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at archaeopolitics.com, and we are at Archaeopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@archaeopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Archaeopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.